What is the purpose of Lincoln's second inaugural address? In this lesson, you will learn how to determine an author's purpose by analyzing the central idea. Let's review. We've been closely examining Lincoln's second inaugural address to find deep insights from the text. We know that Abraham Lincoln delivered this speech shortly after he was re-elected to his second term as president. In the address, Lincoln discusses the Civil War that was coming to an end and how slavery was its root cause. In this lesson, we are going to look at the last paragraph of the text in order to determine the author's purpose of Lincoln's second inaugural address. Here are the steps that we will take. Step 1. Review the central idea. Step 2. Ask yourself, what did the author want the audience to learn? And Step 3. Ask yourself, why did the author give this message? So first, let's review the central idea. In the previous lesson, we determined that the speech's central idea is, the Civil War is God's punishment on both North and South for the offense of slavery. Here are some excerpts of the text that helped us determine the central idea. The Almighty has His own purposes. Woe unto the world because of offenses, if we shall suppose that American slavery is one of those offenses. And He gives to both North and South this terrible war as the woe due to those by whom the offense came. And finally, the judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. We need to keep the central idea in mind as we try to determine the purpose of Lincoln's speech. Now ask yourself, what did the author want the audience to learn? Let's closely examine the last paragraph of the address to help us understand what Lincoln wanted the audience to learn. Oftentimes in a persuasive speech, the last paragraph contains a call to action. Lincoln ends his speech with these words: with malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle and for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations. When he says, with malice toward none, with charity for all, and to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle and for his widow and his orphan, we see conflicting words none and all in the first part we highlighted. You're probably familiar with the meaning of the word charity, which means giving to people in need. He says charity for all, but contrast that with malice toward none. So what might malice mean? It must mean something that is bad or harmful, since it is in contrast to the word charity. Since Lincoln wants his audience to have malice toward none, perhaps he is saying that he doesn't want them to have hard feelings toward each other. I think he wants his audience to learn that they should forgive and care for one another. Now when he says, with firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right, and talks about a just peace, Lincoln is saying, do what is right. And finally, he says, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, and to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations. He is telling his audience that the nation must make peace. These are the three things Lincoln wants his audience to learn from this paragraph. These ideas will help us determine his purpose for this speech. Now ask yourself, why did the author give this message? When you ask this question, you are getting at the author's purpose of the speech. He says, to forgive and care for one another, do what is right, and make peace. Let's review some key phrases that we highlighted. Let us strive on to finish the work, with firmness in the right. From this we can say that Lincoln wants the North and South to do what is right. He also says, with malice toward none, with charity for all, bind up the nation's wounds, and make peace among ourselves. These quotes talk about reconciling in order to heal in unity as a nation. Why did the author give this message? Well, Lincoln wants the North and South to do what is right by reconciling in order to heal in unity as a nation. That is Lincoln's purpose of his second inaugural address. Here are the steps you can take to find the author's purpose of a text. First, review the central idea. Then, ask yourself, what did the author want the audience to learn? Then, ask yourself, why did the author give this message? In this lesson, you have learned how to determine an author's purpose by analyzing the central idea.